Welcome back, Jag-Offs. If you've been following along with my videos, you'll remember that I got my Jag running, only to have it die again 2 days later. Now initially, I thought that the problem couldn't possibly be with the fuel pump or the fuel delivery system, because all of that had already been sorted out. However, I quickly realized that the fuel pump wasn't even running. After just a little bit of troubleshooting, I found that the wiring inside the tank was showing an open circuit. Now let's take a look at what I found in there. Alright, to give you an idea on how all this goes together, this is the actual pump itself. It fits down into this housing and is capped off with this. And then this part sits on top of the tank, and this electrical connection plugs in here. Now once I got everything apart, it was pretty clear why the pump wasn't running. This connector is just absolutely scorched. Now I'm not entirely sure why that happened, but one possibility is that it could be this really crappy crimp job right here. Now it doesn't really look like this is factory to me. These wires right here are heavier, and they just look more factory to me than this end over here. And another thing you can see, maybe, is that the wires are actually exposed right here. Now gasoline isn't actually supposed to be conductive, but it can be a little weakly conductive. And I'm wondering, since these were close together like this, swimming around in gasoline, if they were causing like a very high resistance short. And that's why this connector burnt out like this. But let's test the pump and see if the pump itself is okay. Now I'm just going to measure the resistance across that pump. And if it's within a certain range, it should indicate that the windings inside the pump are actually okay. That seems like it should be normal. My main concern right now is replacing this connector, because it is borked. I've tried looking online at a couple of Jag resources, and they don't sell just this electrical connection by itself. They only sell this whole thing as a complete unit for like 600 bucks, and that's a big negative here. I do see some numbers on the bottom of this connector, so hopefully I can reference that and just find a replacement. You know, after looking even more closely at this connector, I'm starting to wonder if this is even the correct connector for this plug right here. If you notice, it is keyed similarly, but different. This bottom key is in the center right here, and this one is offset. And another thing I noticed is that it doesn't actually lock in, it just kind of slides on. I wonder if that made a poor fit and there was just arcing in here, and that's why it burnt out. I guess I need to research this a little bit more. I may end up just rigging up my own thing right here. So another issue I had with this thing is that the brass barb pulled out of the pump canister, and when that happened, the check valve parts went everywhere. So these are the parts here that I was able to fish out of the tank, and I think they go back together something like this. And this should fit down in here, with this being pressed back in. But I'm a little worried I might be missing a part. I'm not really sure. I guess I'll just reassemble it and see how it goes. But the real issue is the electrical connectors. As you can see, this one is completely fried out, and this one isn't much better. This is what goes through the evaporative head on the tank. This plugs in here on the inside of the tank, and this is external to the tank. I'd really like to get a new one of these and a new one of these, but I don't know where to find them. I might just have to make my own. Alright, so I can't find the correct parts anywhere, so I'm gonna have to get creative. What I'm gonna try and do is build a plug out of RTV, and then once that's set up solid, I can punch a little hole through it to put the wires through. Let's see if that's gonna work. On the back side of the hole, I'm gonna put a little bit of Gorilla Tape to seal it off. Now I'm going to try squeezing the silicone down in there. I want to get it under that lip. So now I'm going to try and even it out just a little bit with this toothpick. Alright, so now I guess we just have to wait and see how it goes. Hopefully this solidifies into a solid plug. And I don't really expect it to stick permanently to this plastic. I should be able to pop it out if and when I actually find the correct parts. These connectors shouldn't be that proprietary. I bet you they cross-reference to something else. I just need to figure out what that is. But in the meantime, I want this car running. So I'm gonna let this sit for almost a whole day and see how it is. All right, through the movie magic, it's been 24 hours, and I'm kind of starting to rethink this plan a little bit. First of all, this is still a little squidgy, so it hasn't set up all the way, and I'm kind of wondering if it ever will, but I think I'm gonna give it another at least 12 hours to see if it sets up harder. The other place I think I might have made a mistake is that even though this has high oil resistance, it's actually not recommended for use in contact gasoline. But I'm gonna run a little experiment to see if it can actually hold up to gasoline or not. I've got this little chunk of RTV right here that I'm going to drop in this glass container with some gasoline and just let it soak. And I also have a backup plan. If it turns out that this stuff doesn't hold up to the gasoline, I actually sacrificed one of my jack pucks to make a plug. And just to make sure this stuff is gas resistant as well, I have a little piece of it that I'm going to drop in the glass jar with the silicone. Now, if it turns out that the rubber plug is a better option than the RTV, I'm going to use the arts and crafts skills that Nana passed down to me to sculpt this plug to perfectly match this connector. And then I'll just drill holes through it for the wires. So let's drop these little hunks of test material in the jar and add some gas. All right, with this filled up with gas, we just wait and see. All right, I've had this soaking in the gas for a couple of days, and you can see the RTV is kind of swelled up a little bit, but it's not degrading at all. So I think I'm just gonna run with my hack and see how it goes. I'm also just gonna leave this in here. That way, if I do observe any degradation over time, I'll know I need to fix it. So I had an ID10T error with the camera and didn't get any footage of it, but I did get the check valve squeezed back in here, and I did a little sucky blowy test, and it seems like it's kind of working to me. And I also rewired the pump and shoved everything back down into the canister. Here's how the top hat of the tank turned out. The RTV is firmed up quite nicely, and I just drilled a hole through it to run these wires. And this, on the outside of the tank, will connect back to the original harness. Now, since I deviated from the original design, I'm going to tape this note to the tank, letting whoever works on this next know what I did and why, and also apologizing for my hack job. Now let's get all this put back together. So you can see down in here, there's a little rubber ring at the bottom of the gas tank, and that's what the canister fits down into. Now I'm not really going to be able to film me putting this back in because as my hand goes in here, it's just going to be in the way of the camera. So let me get in there and I'll show you how it hooks up. All right, we got everything hooked back up here. So the canister has little tabs on the bottom of it that fit into slots in that rubber ring down there. And I have to say, whoever assembled this thing has a lot smaller wrists than I do. Getting both hands down in here and getting that back together was quite cumbersome. Now while I have the tank out, I wanted to give you a better look at where the hoses connect to the underside of the tank and these little clips. As you can see, they have little slots, and when you push the clip over like this, the clip falls into the slot and retains the hose. And if you remember from my previous video on the Jag, this is what I was fighting with underneath the car. Now if you're ever working on one of these, it's important to note you do not take these clips off. You just rotate them. And all it takes is about a quarter of a rotation to disengage or engage the clip. This side is the feed line and this side is the return. All right, let's see if I can get the top hat successfully hooked back up. This rubber ring goes down just like that. Let's get these electrical connections hooked up. And the top hat just sits down on here like this. Get our lock ring down on here. Make sure it's engaged all the way around. Then we use a mallet and screwdriver to just tap it back into place. All right, now let's go get the tank back in the car. As you can see, the sun is now set. I had to break for dinner and then got back to putting the tank back together without much fanfare. Now let's see if she starts. Oh yeah, listen to her purr. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe.